investigation, and Skybus flights between Land's End and the Isles of Scilly currently on hold because of poor weather conditions. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Teenage girls are out drinking their male peers in the UK at a greater rate than any other European country. Yes, more than a third of 15-year-old girls in the UK report getting repeatedly drunk, compared to less than a quarter of boys the same age. I suppose what I'd say to this is, boys, what are you doing? Pull yourself together. Well, joining me now is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and the former Labour advisor, Matthew Larser. Charlotte, you're going to have to speak up on behalf of girls the country over here. 15-year-old girls boozing much more than their male counterparts.
I think it's to do with the pain threshold, so we can handle hangovers better.
Do you get hangovers when you're 15 years old?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was drinking hooch and smelling...
Absolutely. Whatever happened to hooch?
Yeah. And I just think we can tolerate it better. Right. And I don't know, I grew up in that kind of wild child 90s drinking era. I'm showing my age a bit. And, God, we drank a lot as teenage girls. I mean, it's actually shocking now in retrospect.
Well, I also think in terms of boys versus girls, I wonder if we've got a bit of a thing about... I mean, the old cliché that girls develop quicker, they can become social quicker. They can certainly get into the pub more easily because they look older. Yeah. You know, because of makeup, etc. I wonder if the boys are all just, you know, in their rooms playing on their devices, as it were. You know, as people increasingly dominated by screens, whether in fact there's an issue about socialisation, about whether in fact, you know, the lads are not out there socialising.
They have little sips of wine in France from the age of like 12 and they're absolutely fine about it. Yeah. Whereas we all know what happens to British girls, because I was one of them. You turn, however, old enough to get a bottle of Smirnoff Ice, and boy, do you go for it, and until you're vomiting, basically.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Very good morning to you. It's 9:30 on Friday, January the 10th, live across the UK. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akwe.
Good morning to you. Now, could there be a split in the Labour Party over the grooming gang scandal? Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, backs a limited national inquiry.
And in a GB News exclusive, Charlie Peters sits down with Jane Senior, the youth worker who blew the whistle on Britain's rape gang epidemic.
It needs to go one step further, and it needs to look at those senior professionals that were complicit, ignored this, covered it up. You know, because we sit here and you look at not just Rotherham, but you look across the UK, I am not aware of any professional that's ever been held to account.
The Chancellor heads to China despite growing market turmoil back home as borrowing costs spiral out of control.
And elsewhere, Elon Musk's tweets are probed by the Home Office Counter-terrorism unit as the government raises the alarm over a risk to Britain after the tech billionaire's recent comments on grooming gangs.
Devastation in Los Angeles as fires continue to rage. 10 are now dead as thousands of homes are destroyed and almost 200,000 people ordered to evacuate the area as President Biden promises to spare no expense to rebuild.
Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever.
How's this for a change of mind? Mark Zuckerberg gets tough on trans as he updates Meta's moderation rules to unwind years of free speech restrictions.
And farming protests continue today for the third consecutive day. Tractors will be taking to the roads in their fight against Labour's family farm inheritance tax.
Morning to you. Thank you for your company. We're also debating whether, again, Shamima Begum should be welcomed back to the UK with open arms because, Nana, Trump's counter-terrorism czar, Sebastian Gorka, a friend of this channel, he says Britain should repatriate Begum and deal with her on UK soil.
Yeah, he can say what he likes, really, because he's not here, we are here, and I don't think we've really got the expense to be policing and seeing where she goes, and she'll utilise it for Instagram and all the other stuff that she can do, and I think she'll just make money off the back back of this. I think, as an example and a reminder to others, I think she should stay where she is.
And I'll just remind everybody as well, Shamima Begum said from her refugee camp in Syria, I think, she said the Manchester arena bombings were justified because of Western airstrikes in the Middle East. So make your own mind up. gbnews.com/your say. First, here's your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the Newsroom 9:33. The top story, the UK government's Counter-terrorism unit is investigating Elon Musk over controversial tweets targeting senior politicians. It comes after he called Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips a rape genocide apologist and suggested she deserves to be in prison, while also accusing the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, of failing to act on rape gangs. Experts are warning Musk's posts could incite violence as threats against female MPs like Jess Phillips may, they say, constitute terrorism. It comes after a man was charged with sending malicious messages to Jess Phillips following Elon Musk's remarks. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is under fire today after a poll has revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, do support a new and national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Tory-led call for an inquiry. But there are party divisions among Labour, with senior figures like Greater Manchester Mayor Labour and Andy Burnham supporting a limited probe. He says an inquiry would hold authorities accountable, with survivors claiming that key issues remain unresolved despite an investigation in 2022. However, the government says it's focused on action, not delays, and Downing Street insists it is committed to leaving no stone unturned, guided by survivors' demands. Boosting UK trade or neglecting the economy? That's the row surrounding Chancellor Rachel Reeves's trip to China. She's meeting China's Vice Premier and UK firms as government borrowing costs have hit their highest level since 2008. Critics, including the Conservatives, argue she should stay home to address the pound's fall and rising national debt. Economists warn of spending cuts or possible tax hikes ahead of a fiscal update in March, while the Treasury insists markets are stable. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond says Reeves' trip shouldn't be cancelled despite the mounting pressure. Turning now to Los Angeles, where out-of-control wildfires have killed at least 10 people and forced nearly 200,000 people to flee their homes. The Pacific Palisades fire has destroyed over 5,300 buildings, making it now the city's most destructive blaze ever. Meanwhile, a new fire in West Hills has sparked fresh fears as police arrested a man on suspicion of arson. And insurance losses are expected to exceed well over $8 billion, with officials warning the crisis is far from over. And back here at home, a very different weather picture. Temperatures in the north of the UK could drop as low as minus 20 degrees Celsius tonight, with the Met Office warning of severe cold and icy conditions. Yellow warnings for ice and snow remain across Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but they're set to expire by midday today. Freezing fog is expected, though, to cause travel disruption in England and in Wales, adding to earlier chaos at Manchester Airport and on the railways. Meanwhile, hundreds of schools in Scotland and Wales have closed as wintry weather grips the nation. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you for a full roundup at the top of the hour. Now, though, it's over to Ben and Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello, good morning to you. Thank you for your company this morning on Britain's Newsroom, live across the UK. I'm Ben Leo, and of course, this is Nana Akua. How's your week been, Nana?
It's been all right, actually. I've been really stuck into the news and seeing what's going on.
Yeah.
It's all quiet. All the focus, what I find is this odd focus on, oh, Elon Musk has said this, Elon Musk has said that. I'm so upset with what Elon Musk has said. Yet what Elon Musk is saying is you need to get a handle on the grooming gangs, and he's drawing attention to something. And I just feel a lot of the politicians are drawing attention onto themselves, Jess Phillips included, and I don't think it's nice that anyone is saying nasty things, but I just think the focus should be on the people who are affected by this scandal, the victims.
Do you think the criticism of Elon Musk is the fact that they think he's getting involved where he shouldn't, or the fact that he's exposing and ripping the Band-Aid off a topic which is going to cause a lot of sensitivities indeed and expose a lot of politicians as well for, quite frankly, doing nothing, not doing their jobs?
Well, the problem is they don't like what he is saying. If he was saying something that they liked, they wouldn't have a problem with it. But what he is saying is something that I know a lot of the British public would like to say, but we don't have power because Keir Starmer has this massive majority, as he proved with the vote on whether we should have the national inquiry. And disgracefully, I have to say, all the Labour MPs all rallied behind him.
And just on Jess Phillips as well, I mentioned to Stephen and Ellie just then, she's complaining about death threats and so on off the back of Elon's criticism. I say again, Nigel Farage has been getting those kind of death threats for, I'd say, decades now, 20-odd years, or nearing on anyway. Even as recently as the riots, where they were called the Farage riots, in my opinion, quite wrongly, he was getting so much stick from that. And nobody sticks up and complains then, not least Labour MPs. I know Keir Starmer says, where are the Tories sticking up for Jess Phillips? Where are the Reform MPs defending Jess Phillips? It's like, well, sorry, you guys haven't been doing the same for Conservative politicians.
Well, and also, I think it's, the strength of feeling is that we do need a national inquiry. The Alexis J report did not cover Rotherham, that, or Oldham, that specifically. And I think it's time that we joined the dots and worked out why this is happening. And also, that particular inquiry didn't have the power to even force police officers and people like that who they felt were involved in it to speak. So
yeah, pretty toothless, to say the least.
Not good enough.
Well, look, Labour Mayor for Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has apparently distanced himself somewhat from Sir Keir Starmer and the government's stance on that inquiry into the rape gang scandal.
So, speaking to local radio last night, he says that he thinks that there is a case for a limited national inquiry in order to hold people to account.
And GB News can also exclusively reveal that over 75% of UK adults do want a national inquiry into these grooming and rape gangs.
Well, joining us now is Police and Crime Commissioner for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, Donna Jones. Donna, thank you very much for joining us. Look, what are your thoughts on this? Because Andy Burnham is now saying a limited inquiry. We know that the previous inquiry was a little bit toothless in that it couldn't really bring the police, who may well have been involved in this, members, hold them to account. Where do you stand with this?
Well, thank you for having me on, Nana, but why limited? Why should it be a limited inquiry for these poor girls that have had their lives ruined? Let's not forget, and I'm going to give a bit of a warning here before I say this to anyone who's watching this, if there are children in the room. We've had girls, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, raped with broken bottles. They've had petrol poured on them. They've been kidnapped. One girl, Laura Wilson, was murdered, stabbed over 40 times by one of the men that had been grooming her, that she was led to believe she was in a relationship with from when she was 14 or 15 years of age. He has been convicted of her murder. He's behind bars. But, I don't understand why this should be limited. I think it's an absolute disgrace to the victims. And I agree with the point that you just made. That's who we should be thinking of. But just a caveat, particularly for your viewers, and I was on your show last Thursday with Martin Daubney calling for this inquiry before any member of the Conservative front bench did, and before Andy Burnham did, and before Harriet Harman has come out in the last 24 hours saying this. And the reason I've said that is because I've been researching this for over 2 years. I previously had a national lead role for victims of crime in my position as a Police and Crime Commissioner. What has happened is a national disgrace on the scale of the blood scandal, on the scale of the post office. Only these are people's actual lives. Some of these girls, we've been told, will never, ever be the same internally because the vaginal injuries that they have had for the rest of their lives. Those things cannot be repaired. It is an absolute travesty. And the point you've just made, in 2022, when Andy Burnham ordered that investigation on behalf of Oldham and on behalf of Rotherham, Telford and Oldham, he couldn't subpoena, he couldn't request that people came and gave evidence, social workers, police officers. The J report from Rochdale and Rotherham on the other side of the Pennines victims. That one, again, was very, very limited. It didn't, I think it mentioned Telford once in the whole report. These victims deserve a full public inquiry. And actually, more importantly, as a country, don't we want that too? So that we can make sure that these things never happen again.
Yeah. Well, Donna, thank you very much. I just don't get it. It's really good to speak to you there, Donna Jones.
Thank you, Donna.
I don't understand why you wouldn't want a national investigation into this scandal, joining all the dots and bringing all the people to account. It makes no sense.
Well, let's find out. We're joined now by Labour Party activist Chris. Chris, good morning. Thank you for your company this morning. What is the problem then? Is it money? What's the problem here in terms of Sir Keir Starmer's reluctance to just go ahead with a national inquiry? Everybody wants it.
Well, look, I think what we've seen is with Andy Burnham's calls, you know, how devolution can provide a voice to those regions. He's got a record that's good on delivering on these things and calling for inquiries. What a limited national inquiry looks like, not too sure. But, you know, what we've got to understand is Labour in opposition called for a national inquiry. Mayor Andy Burnham, 7 years ago, after there was an inquiry, stood down, called for one, got one, and since then we've had Manchester investigate, Oldham, Manchester, Rochdale, and all those sort of areas that have come forward with recommendations. You're right that there was police that weren't compelled to come forward. That's an issue, and he did speak about calling for a wider one across the north, and there was other limited, impetus from those local authorities to join him in those calls. And realistically, we should be having like local councillors responsible for not calling that and putting that down to where these issues are held. And at the end of the day, we've got Jess Phillips, who's our victims minister, who spent her whole career supporting and helping victims, survivors.
So why is she not doing it now?
Well, she is doing it.
I mean, I hear this all the time. She spent her whole life, and yeah, that's really nice, and I really think that's lovely. But why has she stopped that now?
She's not stopped that now, about
What's the reason?
The victims themselves have said we would like this. Literally every victim who is brave enough to face the media, because it's a very frightening thing to have to do,
absolutely,
said that we want these people held to account. A lot of them are still wandering around, having not even been prosecuted, and it was a whole intricate network of people, the police, the councillors, and, of course, the abusers, all kind of meshed into this together. So I don't understand why Jess Phillips has decided to stop supporting these people now.
Jess Phillips has never stopped advocating and supporting victims. When you look at Professor Alexis Jay, who she spoke to a number of victims. Andrew Norfolk, who's investigated this. Jess Phillips, who's had...
Yes.
But she's even had a book. But Jess Phillips has written a book on this. What do you mean, so what? That is...
Well, what about now?
These are about the victims, Nana.
It's about the last thing. It's always...
Action, not delay. We've got...
What's the reason now?
What's the reason now? You're going backwards.
Why now wouldn't
we get on with delivering for the victims? That's what they're doing by implementing the report recommendations. What is in the report recommendation? Let's just explain what they will do. Why now? Why this will help victims now, not waiting 8 years for another inquiry and £200 million.
8 years. We could do it in a year.
Well, let's just look at what they're doing. We've got mandatory reporting, a legal obligation to report child abuse. I mean, the fact that wasn't the case and that the Tories didn't implement that is absolutely ridiculous.
So that focuses on just generic.
It's not a generic thing to report child abuse, Ben.
This issue here is Pakistani rape gangs, the cover-up over fear of being called racist, and the deliberate targeting of white girls.
The political correctness issues were identified in the Rotherham report. This is nothing new. We've identified it. We're talking about it. It's been going on and on and on. The action that needs to be taken is implementing the recommendations report, a child protection authority, a requirement to report abuse, making it illegal to not report abuse.
Where is it in this recommendation that you hold to account all these abusers across who've been abusing across?
We prosecute.
Now, where is it in this wonderful report, or the thing that you're telling us that the Labour Party are doing, that it actually says that we will hold the people to account for their behaviour over this last few decades on this?
Look, where we need to start with...
Does it say that?
Where it needs to start with is delivering justice for the victims. And Keir Starmer, since becoming in as the DPP, he was the one that recognised that. There was the biggest scandal in history of Rochdale. He, Nana, recognised that the CPS failed. If we're talking about holding institutions to account, which Jess Phillips booked with Sarah Robotham, a sexual health centre worker, who, talks about the cost to activists or fighting for this. We're seeing it now with how social media is playing out, attacking people who have defended victims their whole life and supported for them
whole life.
So it's not in the report.
What's in the report is actions.
Actions for the victims and so on.
To set up the changes that are needed to get justice.
I think,
Why don't you? What's that so hard to understand?
The changes that they need to get justice. An inquiry would expose
We've
all
had an
of those
inquiry.
elements. No, the inquiry.
What are you trying to get out of the inquiry?
The inquiry
that we don't have
was
now?
not very specific.
What do we want to get out of the inquiry?
OK, so what you didn't have in the previous inquiry was that you couldn't force police and councillors to speak and expose and tell their version of events. You couldn't hold them to account. A national inquiry would ensure that those people, the people who covered things up, will be brought to account and punished.
And you don't think that the report, the recommendations and the actions that will come out of this inquiry will not deliver on that?
Can you do both? You can do both.
Well, what's the point of having someone not going in a report when we've already got a report?
You can do both. The victims.
We've got to have another report just to
get...
get...
victims.
Let me just ask you a very simple question. You agree it's all about the victims now, right?
It's about getting justice for the victims and making sure this doesn't happen again as much as possible.
Well, the victims have said...
want an inquiry.
The victims want action.
No,
that's what
Is it about the victims
It's a delivering on justice. Well, you're talking about financial compensation has been talked about in the report. That's delivering for the victims. It's all about the victims.
But the victims want
outcomes that deliver justice.
Where did you hear them say that? None of them have said that.
Well, we've heard it if you listen to Dr. Ella Hills and Trigonometry.
They've asked for an inquiry and a national inquiry as well to connect the dots. What is the reason?
The perpetrators are getting away with this by...
What is the reason?
What's the reason?
What is the reason for the Labour Party denying a national inquiry because the victims have asked for it?
They are getting on with delivering the changes that are needed, speaking truth to power, and the changes to save.
I would just say, Chris, if you think it's about the victims, which is correct...
It's about the victims.
Right, the victims want
and they're going to get delivered.
There we go. Simple as that.
They want an inquiry.
A government spokesperson from the Home Office has issued the following statement. They've said no child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it's paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we're working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse.
All right, well, stay with us. Still to come, Elon Musk's tweets are now being probed by a counter-extremism unit.
So it's time for that.
Oh, yeah. What about some of David Lammy's comments and some of the tweets from West Streeting and all the others? But first, if you are in search of some winter sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not too hard to find something a little warmer than the UK. Around the Mediterranean, temperatures are generally in the low teens, but it's not completely dry. A few showers are possible across Cyprus this weekend, so looking fairly wet across southern Italy and Croatia, although that rain will be scooting away by Sunday. Plenty of sunshine across the east and the south coast of Spain, and lots of sunshine for the Canaries. It will be quite breezy in Madeira, quite a lot of cloud likely here over the next few days as well, turning a little colder in Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Teenage girls are out drinking their male peers in the UK at a greater rate than any other European country. Yes, more than a third of 15-year-old girls in the UK report getting repeatedly drunk, compared to less than a quarter of boys the same age. I suppose what I'd say to this is, boys, what are you doing? Pull yourself together. Well, joining me now is the editor-at-large at the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and the former Labour advisor, Matthew Larser. Charlotte, you're going to have to speak up on behalf of girls the country over here. 15-year-old girls boozing much more than their male counterparts.
I think it's to do with the pain threshold, so we can handle hangovers better.
Do you get hangovers when you're 15 years old?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I was drinking hooch and smelling...
Absolutely. Whatever happened to hooch?
And I just think we can tolerate it better. Right. And I don't know, I grew up in that kind of wild child 90s drinking era. I'm showing my age a bit. And, God, we drank a lot as teenage girls. I mean, it's actually shocking now in retrospect.
Well, I also think in terms of boys versus girls, I wonder if we've got a bit of a thing about... I mean, the old cliché that girls develop quicker, they can become social quicker. They can certainly get into they get into the pub more easily because they look older.
Yeah.
You know, because of makeup, etc. I wonder if the boys are all just, you know, in their rooms playing on their devices, as it were. You know, as people increasingly dominated by screens. Whether in fact there's an issue about socialisation, about whether in fact, you know, the lads are not out there socialising.
They have little sips of wine in France from the age of like 12, and they're absolutely fine about it.
Yeah.
Whereas we all know what happens to British girls, because I was one of them. You turn, however, old enough to get a bottle of Smirnoff Ice, and boy, do you go for it, and until you're vomiting, basically.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Now, Mark Zuckerberg has updated his social media empire's moderation rules, now deeming it OK to say transgender and gay users are, quote, mentally ill.
Oh, I don't know. I think the trans thing, maybe, but I don't think gay.
I don't know where the gay bit came from.
I don't agree with the other side of it. I mean,
but trans, by definition, is gender dysphoria, which is a mental illness.
So that's. I agree with that, but I don't. I think he needs to stop. I think that bit's wrong.
Yeah.
Meta has updated its hateful conduct policy to allow certain content, such as allegations of mental illness based on gender or sexual orientation, as well as non-serious abuse related to sexuality.
This comes, of course, as the tech giant unwinds years of restrictions around what the platform has defined as hate speech. We all remember, of course, how they behaved during COVID as well. But we're joined now by psychotherapist and author of When Kids Say They're Trans, Stella O'Malley. Stella, good morning. Is this welcome news as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, it's great to see the you know, big tech starting to release and free people up to say what they want to say. As you said, what happened during COVID was a massive suppression of free speech. And it's happened with regards to trans issues for many years. And people were being banned and, you know, their content is banned. And it doesn't make for a good society when people can't say what they want to say, because to have a complex thought, you need to be able to feel your way through it by thinking your thoughts out loud.
But look, the COVID thing, there were governments involved in that were trying to sway the narrative, which was totally unacceptable. But for those of us who didn't mind the masks and everything, I went along with it all. I was OK with it. I didn't really notice it. It was only those who were dissenting and going against it that would have noticed this. So that is very worrying, and it kind of opened my eyes a bit more to thinking, hold on a minute, why are these tech giants able to have so much control? But doesn't that show just how much control Mark Zuckerberg and his platform actually have, that they can at a whim just remove the restrictions? Should we be looking at something more as well from these people, because they have so much power and control, really?
Well, we need to have the freedom to say what we need to say. I think you're really highlighting a very important point. You know, in the 20th century, there was one form of censorship and oppression. We saw what happened in, you know, Soviet Union. We saw what happened in East Germany with the Stasi. And so we kind of presumed that's censorship. These days, 21st century censorship is very different. It's online. It's over the media platforms, and you will say what they want you to say. So there was one narrative very much promoted over COVID. There's one narrative very much promoted over trans issues. And people who just want to inquire about the other points, that's all, they just want to look into the other points, are being banned and suppressed. That doesn't make for better outcomes. And it's a new digital way of censoring. And George Orwell said self-censorship was the biggest danger. And that's how people respond to these bans. They self-censor.
Yeah.
So we don't know what people are thinking.
All right. Well, Stella, it's really good to talk to you. That is Stella O'Malley. She's a psychotherapist and author of When Kids Say They're Trans. Do you think this is a welcome thing?
I do. I much welcome it. I also think Zuckerberg is a massive hypocrite. As I said, just because Trump's in power now and he sees the writing on the wall, he goes with a begging bowl to Mar-a-Lago. So it's welcome, but there we go. Anyway, still to come, Elon Musk's tweets being probed by the Home Office Counter-terrorism unit, and with a GBN exclusive, the youth worker who blew the whistle on grooming gangs. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Back in just a tick.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down between junctions 22 and 23 towards Huddersfield, causing queues. On the A1M in South Yorkshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 36 and 35 from Doncaster to the M18 with queues towards there. In Nottinghamshire, the A57 is closed off the A60 to the west of Worksop after an accident. In Lincolnshire, the A17 is closed west of Leadenham after an accident. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is blocked southbound by an accident towards the A5 at Toaster, causing queues heading away from Northampton. In Gloucestershire, the A40 is closed each way where vehicles overturn between Chesgrove and Huntley. In Cornwall, the A30 is closed eastbound from Tolverton to Redruth for an investigation, causing delays, and Skybus flights between Land's End and the Isles of Scilly are on hold because of poor weather conditions. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Imagine how £50,000 in cash from us could make your new year go with a bang. From treats to holidays to fun times with the family, a totally tax-free £50,000 in cash could make you feel alive in 2025. And just one entry into the Great British Giveaway really could make £50,000 cash all yours. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10 o'clock on Friday, the 10th of January. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Ben Leo and me, Nana Acquia.
Very good morning to you. I hope you're well. Could there be a split in the Labour Party over the rape gang scandal? Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, backs a limited national inquiry.
A GB News exclusive now. Charlie Peters sits down with Jane Senior, the youth worker who blew the whistle on Britain's rape gang epidemic.
It needs to go one step further, and it needs to look at those senior professionals that were complicit, ignored this, covered it up. You know, because we sit here and you look at not just Rotherham, but you look across the UK. I am not aware of any professional that's ever been held to account.
Chancellor heads to China. That's despite growing market turmoil back home in the UK as borrowing costs spiral completely out of control.
Elon Musk's tweets are probed by the Home Office Counter-terrorism unit as the government raises the alarm over a risk to Britain after the tech billionaire's recent comments on grooming gangs.
Devastation in Los Angeles as fires continue to rage. 10 are now confirmed dead as thousands of homes are destroyed and almost 200,000 people ordered to evacuate the area as President Joe Biden promises to spare no expense to rebuild.
Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever.
Mark Zuckerberg gets tough on trans as he updates Meta's moderation rules to unwind years of free speech restrictions.
And farming protests continue today for the third consecutive day. Tractors will be taking to the roads in their fight against Labour's family farm inheritance tax.
Well, this is the thing with these politicians, because I find that they sort of disappear when there's a problem. Like Keir Starmer, he's only just come back from wherever it is he went. Rachel Reeves has now done a vanishing act to China. It beggars belief that she isn't here dealing with what I think is the mess that she's created with her economic policies.
They like a foreign jolly, don't they, these Labour politicians? I want to know why, when 10-year gilt yields are much, much higher than they were after Liz Truss's mini-budget, where's the media outrage? Where is the OBR, the Bank of England, all urging for a change of direction? Even politicians in Parliament were calling for Rachel Reeves to come back and address the economic situation. But what does she do? She says, nah, I'm going to get on a flight to China, thank you very much.
Well, do you think she needs to go? Does Rachel Reeves need to go? Let us know your thoughts. I mean, who will go in her place? Who knows if she did? But there's a list as long as your arm. gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you at 3 minutes past 10. The top story from the newsroom. The UK's government's counter-extremism unit, is investigating Elon Musk over controversial tweets targeting senior politicians. He called Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips a rape genocide apologist and suggested she deserves to be in prison, while also accusing Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer of failing to act on rape gangs. Experts are now warning Musk's posts could incite violence as threats against female MPs like Miss Phillips may, they say, constitute terrorism. It also comes after a man was charged with sending malicious messages to Miss Phillips following Elon Musk's remarks. Sir Keir Starmer is under fire today after a poll revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, support a national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Tory-led call for an inquiry earlier this week. However, there are party divisions within the Labour Party, with senior figures like Andy Burnham supporting a limited probe. The Greater Manchester Mayor says an inquiry would hold authorities accountable, with survivors claiming key issues still remain unresolved despite an investigation in 2022. But the government says it is focused on action, not delays, and Downing Street insists it's committed to leaving no stone unturned. Boosting UK trade or neglecting the economy? That's the row surrounding Chancellor Rachel Reeves' trip to China. She's meeting China's Vice Premier and UK firms as government borrowing costs hit their highest level in 27 years. Critics, including Conservatives, argue that she should stay home, though, to address the pound's fall and rising debt. Economists warn of spending cuts or tax hikes ahead of a fiscal update in March, while the Treasury insists markets are stable. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond, though, says Rachel Reeves' trip shouldn't be cancelled, despite the mounting pressure. Out-of-control wildfires in Los Angeles have now killed at least 10 people and forced nearly 180,000 people to flee their homes. One fire in the Pacific Palisades has destroyed over 5,300 buildings, making it the city's most destructive blaze so far. Meanwhile, a new fire in West Hills has sparked fresh fears as police arrested a man on suspicion of arson. And insurance losses are expected to exceed $8 billion, with officials warning the crisis is far from over. Well, a very different weather picture here as the UK has recorded its coldest night of the winter so far. That's minus 14 degrees Celsius in Altnahara in the north of Scotland, with more freezing temperatures expected in the coming days, possibly as low as minus 20. Yellow weather warnings for ice and snow remain in place in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but they are set to expire by midday today. Meanwhile, freezing fog is set to cause travel disruption in England and Wales, adding to earlier chaos at Manchester Airport and on the rail lines, while hundreds of schools in Scotland and Wales have closed today as that wintry weather grips the nation. Safety fears over speeding have been raised in a new RAC survey, with 72% of drivers admitting they see speed limits as targets rather than maximums. The poll found that 81% regularly observe excessive speeding, and over half believe there's a culture in the UK that accepts it. Government figures show that 314 road deaths last year involved speeding drivers. That's the highest in a decade. The government says it's now working on its first road safety strategy in years to address the concerns. And police in the Highlands say 2 more lynx have been spotted in the same area where a pair of the wildcats were captured on Thursday this week. Officers are warning the public not to approach the animals, with specially trained teams working to capture them. The Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, now caring for the captured lynx, has called their illegal release highly irresponsible. Investigations are now underway to uncover the full story behind the latest incident. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Ben and Nana.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good morning. It's just fast approaching 8 minutes after 10 o'clock. Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom. We're live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Ben Leo and me, Nana Acquia.
Morning to you. Thanks for your company. It's been a hell of a week, hasn't it? Well, since the weekend with Elon Musk's tweets. But now, Nana, he's been referred to a Home Office counter-extremism unit.
And, you know, I think these tweets all started really because if it was an interview that I did with Nigel on Saturday...
Yeah, so
I think that was the last straw.
Was that one where Nigel suggested, I don't think he used the word educate, but he said he'd speak to Elon at the inauguration and tell him about Tommy Robinson. Is that the one?
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah, look, I think it is interesting that they're suddenly kicking into action now, but they're not doing it when their own MPs and people like that were spouting out awful language towards Donald Trump and Nigel Farage and all of this. So I think it's very two-tier. I'd say it's another example of the two-tier nature of what we're seeing in government.
Yeah, I'd love to know which tweets of his specifically has alerted this counter-extremism unit. Because as far as I can see, I mean, some are quite close to the mark, but I think that in terms of the rape gangs, they're needed. It's arguable Elon Musk has done more for this country and those victims than anyone else in the world, not least, Labour politicians. But, yeah, as I said, the government's counter-extremism unit is currently monitoring tweets by Elon Musk.
Now, the move follows the tech billionaire's recent criticisms of the government and its senior ministers.
Most notably, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips has accused him of endangering her through his social media posts.
And that is after she faced personal criticisms from him over the Grooming rape gang scandal.
Well, we're joined now by the former head of counter-terrorism at the Ministry of Defence, Major Chip Chapman. Good morning, Chip. Thank you for your company.
Good morning.
What's this about, then? It seems, on the surface, it seems rather extraordinary to have tweets from a South African businessman in America being investigated by our counter-terror cops.
I think you have to separate two issues here because there's no such thing in the way it's described as a counter-extremism unit. What you do have in the Home Office is a thing called RICO. That's a Research, Information and Communications Unit. That's been there since 2007. And its job is part of the PREVENT strategy of contests. That is the counter-terrorist strategy, and PREVENT is to stop people being radicalised. And it does that through 3 principal means. Firstly, by looking at open source monitoring. Secondly, by social media analysis. And thirdly, by collaboration with grassroots organisations. So that has been an ongoing thing since 2007. That is different than if things were to be in the terrorist thing, then it would go into MI5 and Counter-Terrorist Command. And we've seen since the 7th of October 2023, for example, a lot of referrals in that period to the Counter-Terrorist Internet Referral Unit, which would be part of Counter-Terrorist Command. So they're two different things. So the first thing is benign, but it's understanding to try and stop people being radicalized. What you have to say about all this, though, of course they should do that function, because you do get a swarm effect where parring of things by social media can put people into echo chambers and lead to confirmation bias. And there was a guy sent down for a terrorist offense last year, a conspiracy theorist who wanted to blow up the communications and critical national infrastructure. And the judge in that said that this was a physical manifestation of the online world. So it's not necessarily the tweets of Musk which are the issue. It's what that leads to with the people who read that, and that's sort of what we call the hop searching and confirmation bias that goes behind that.
But what about, OK, so if they are doing this because of his tweets, then what about Wes Streeting saying that anybody who supports Suzanne Hole is a white supremacist, or Jan Moir under the bus, and all these things, or calling Donald Trump a neo-Nazi sociopath, sympathising sociopaths, that could have brought people or made somebody want to then try and assassinate or attempt to assassinate him. Why are they putting so much energy into this and so little into the things that their own MPs have said?
Well, you don't know that that's true. They wouldn't. They look. The other thing about Counter-Terrorist Command is it's led by the threat. It is not led by an ideology, whether it's left-wing or right-wing. If there is a threat to national security, then the agencies will look at that.
Do you believe that there is a threat to national security from these tweets?
There's always a threat from this. So let me give you another example. Another guy was jailed for counter-terrorist legislation in November last year, and that was done under the fact that he was an anti-vax conspiracy theorist who encouraged violence against Professor Sir Chris Whitty. The judge in that case said he was entitled to publish and vent his views, but he had gone much further. In doing so, had committed the offences, that is, acts preparatory to terrorism. That is why you have to be careful about what you tweet. It is not a benign environment.
Yeah, I guess it's not the United States, of course. We're one of the most constrained countries in the world for free speech. Chip, just last question very quickly. Do you know what tweets specifically or tweets Elon Musk is being monitored over?
No, I don't. But what I would say is there's no such thing as absolute free speech.
Well, there is in America.
Responsibilities. There isn't. Free speech has authorities and responsibilities. You won't have free speech in America in terms of, for example, YouTube doesn't publish any pornography. So it's community standards which actually caveat what you can say in various platforms.
It's free speech within a democracy. We have an agreed set of rules, and in America they've got the Constitution. If you go beyond those, then of course you can be charged. All right, thank you very much. It's Major Chip Chapman. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Chip. Let's move on, because the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is heading abroad again, this time to China.
The Chancellor's hoping to restart trade and investment talks, but that's despite the markets being in turmoil over government borrowing costs surging to their highest level in 27 years.
And get this, both the Governor of the Bank of England and the Chief Executive of the Financial Conduct Authority have joined Rachel Reeves on that trip. A nice little jolly.
Oh, lovely, yes. All expenses paid, I presume. We're paying for it, right?
Which means the top 3 finance execs in the country are out of the country.
Well, you would run away, wouldn't you? But it's OK, because this morning the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, says the Chancellor is right to go to China. OK, well, let's talk to the Professor of Economics and Public Policy at King's College London, Jonathan Portes. Jonathan, good morning. Thanks for your company. What do you make of this trip abroad, then, and the wider economic situation? Because, as far as I can see, just referring to 10-year gilt yields specifically, they're much higher now than they were when Liz Truss was pillared for her mini-budget.
Yes, but of course there's a big difference, as Philip Hammond explained, the former Conservative Chancellor explained this morning. Our gilt yields have gone up along with the US's. Compared to where they were a year ago, they've gone up by almost exactly the same amount as they have in the US. So what is happening? The UK is a small economy. We do not set global interest rates. They are largely set, when it comes to us, by the US. what has happened is that Trump has promised a bunch of policies, higher tariffs, big tax cuts, mass deportations. All of those are expected to be inflationary and to push up US interest rates and to push up the dollar. That has an effect on us. Now, that doesn't mean it's not bad news for the UK. In some ways, it's worse news than when it was Liz Truss, because with Liz Truss, it was entirely homegrown UK incompetence and catastrophe made in the UK, made in Downing Street. And of course, we could solve that. We did solve it by kicking out Liz Truss and restoring a measure of sanity. Unfortunately, that option is not available to us. You could sack Rachel Reeves, but that's not going to help because it's not Rachel Reeves who's causing this problem.
So Jonathan, sorry, can I just clarify? You're saying that Trump's pledge to deport illegal migrants is more to blame for our economic situation than the Chancellor?
I didn't say it was to blame for our economic situation. I said is one of the factors, along with higher tariffs and massive tax cuts, which is pushing up US interest rates and hence is pushing up UK interest rates. And you can just, all you have to do is show a chart. Why don't you just show a chart showing US bond yields against UK bond yields and tell us where do you think, what do you think is really driving this? It's not particularly difficult to grasp.
I guess the difference is the US has growth currently and we don't, and this government ran its entire ticket on growth. And they failed on that front. Inflation was falling, it's now ticking back up. I don't see how none of the blame can be attributed to Rachel Reeves or this government.
There is a really big challenge for the UK on growth. That is absolutely right. That is broadly separate to what's happened in the markets to UK interest rates, driven, as I said, largely by international developments. So you're absolutely right. And that's what I said when I gave my own unsolicited advice to the Chancellor yesterday. We have to think about the long term. Don't panic in response to global market developments, but focus on growth. You have to get things like planning reform, building infrastructure, deregulation in some sectors. You have to building more houses. You have to get all of that, getting people who've drifted out of the labor market through sickness and disability, helping them get back to work. All of those things, which is what we need for long-term growth. That is what she and the government should be concentrating on.
Not running off to China. OK, what about the pound then?
Because well, China, wait a minute. I mean, you talk as if going to China for 3 days was some sort of jolly, that it's going to be fun. She's going to see the sights or go and see the Great Wall. That is not how these trips work. It may or may not be successful. I don't know. Dealing with the Chinese is very difficult and very complicated. We all know that. But let's be quite clear. The reason she, the governor of the Bank of England and the head of the Financial Conduct Authority are going there is to try and increase Chinese investment in the UK because they think they will help with growth. That may or may not work, but it is certainly not. That is her job, and that is the sort of thing that she absolutely has to be doing.
Very quickly, because I've not got time and I shouldn't be doing this. But what about the pound? The pound, which has plunged to its lowest level since 2023.
Against the dollar, not against the euro.
Yeah, but it is, again, a sign, isn't it? Surely she can't be absolved of all responsibility.
No, wait, the pound has not plunged, the dollar has gone up. I'll just go back again to what I said before. Show up. Why don't you actually show some charts on your screen so people can understand what's happening? You'll see that the pound and the euro have both gone down against the dollar because the dollar has gone up for precisely the same reasons that I explained at the beginning of this segment.
All right. Professor Jonathan Portes, thank you very much. He's a professor of economics and public policy. Right.
Up next, Harry and Meghan, your favourite couple.
Oh, lovely, yeah. Lovely.
Were they on your Christmas card list?
Not really, no.
No, no surprise. They're opening their Montecito mansion to friends and loved ones fleeing the California fires. And I've got a really interesting clip to play you as well of a member of the public in Los Angeles approaching the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. It's really must-see, so stick with us. We've got Kane Blackwell and James Schneider in the studio next, reviewing that story and all the papers. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
we've got a special treat for you because we can show you this lovely video of a lady running on a beach. So you're not missing much if you're listening on the radio. It is literally a woman in white writing on the beach, writing 2025.
Yes, because that's the year we're in now.
Is it?
Yes,
Wow.
and it's because Meghan Markle returned to Instagram yesterday.
Former world correspondent for The Sun, Charles Ray, joins us now. Are you inspired to remember the year, Charles?
Oh, Happy New Year to you too as well. I honestly haven't got a clue what she's doing now. You know, I would have thought we should have had the theme tune from Jaws as she was running down to the water there and everything else. They're being quite hypocritical here because they came off social media because they were getting unparalleled abuse. I don't condone at all. It is not right whatsoever. And they've spent the last few years complaining about social media.
We've seen her before with her lifestyle blog, haven't we? Before she met Prince Harry, she was running a successful blog. Do you think she wants to go back to doing that sort of thing?
I think it's possible that that's what she wants to do. I mean, I don't understand how these things work, okay? But all I know is that certain influencers earn an awful lot of money from Instagram and everything else. Now, they're talking about figures. I mean, whether this is true or not, I've something like £790,000 she could earn per post. You know, so it's quite incredible what she can possibly earn out of this. It's interesting, though, Stephen and Ellie, that she's actually switched off all the comments on this one.
I noticed that.
Clearly, she doesn't want to have anybody on there saying anything nasty or anything good about it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. 10:20. I just said me or you,
and
I heard silence, so I said, oh, I'll do it then. 10:23, Ben and Nana with you on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Right, joining us now, political commentator Kane Blackwell and journalist James Schneider. They're in the studio. All right, so I just quickly wanted to talk about Rachel Reeves, because we had an economist there literally telling us that it wasn't her fault and it was because of America. So I'll start with you, Kane Blackwell.
Well, I mean, Rachel Reeves is jetting off to China now, isn't she? And I think she'll fit in quite well over in China because, you know, her whole agenda, along with Starmer, is something out of Mao's little red book, quite honestly. From the economy to education, it's all about conformity. It's all about stabilising the ship, as we remember her saying in the election. Now it's looking more like the Titanic, quite honestly.
What do you make of the professor we just had on from, was it King's College, Jonathan Portes, who said that it was because of Donald Trump's incoming policies that aren't even implemented yet, he's not even in office. He said, for example, his plan to deport illegal migrants is causing global inflation and in turn affecting our economy. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think the fact that Labour's inflationary pay rises that they're giving to the union paymasters are increasingly, damaging our economy. And the way they are going about this, they talk about growth, and I keep saying this on this show, you cannot tax your way to growth, and I don't think they're listening.
James Schneider.
So I don't think that Reeves can say that it's got nothing to do with her at all. She's the Chancellor and had a budget, and the budget wasn't very good. We're not at some kind of crisis mode. Of course, it's true that some policies that other countries have an impact, although I don't think that you should pass the buck entirely in that way. On Kane's point about China, I mean, I don't think that very much is going to come out of this China trip, but you know, their economy is growing and has been growing at a very, very fast clip for nearly 40 years, kind of the same period that ours has not been doing so well. They've got their high-speed rail that works.
Coal-fired power stations.
And huge amounts of solar panels.
I was about to say.
So the idea that going off to speak to another country, our second biggest trading partner, is some kind of weird conformist thing. I mean, we need to have economic relations, clearly, with all of our major trading partners, with the US, which is threatened by possibly things that Trump might do, with the EU, which is threatened by them not having a clue, and with China. These are the main things that we should be doing. And part of the problem with the economic strategy that we have at the moment is there isn't really one. What we have is Treasury orthodoxy, which says you trim around the edges, you salami slice, you do a little bit of here and there, always to things which hurt ordinary people, and corporate capture. So we're going to see much more of the BlackRock and Blackstone and those sorts of people being able to get
good. I'm glad someone from the left mentioned it. I wonder what the farmers' inheritance tax is all about. You made an interesting point there about the last 40 years, how we've kind of stagnated and China has gone at a clip economically. Isn't it interesting? Over the last 40 years, our carbon contributions have reduced by about, I think it's 60 or 70%. And at the same time, as Nana said, China is opening the equivalent now of 4 coal power stations a week. Does anybody from the left side of the argument or the pro-net zero side of the argument ever consider that the reason things are so terrible in this country is because we don't adopt fossil fuels and we think they're the devil's work? The devil's work. Whereas China have their heads screwed on and they're making money and their people are thriving.
So take one step back, because that's what's actually happened. Britain has deindustrialised, which has meant that our...
And got poorer?
And...
We've offset our
deindustrialisation is bad, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm saying this has been a very bad, destructive process which has been going on for 40 years, right? That is the main reason why along with some other elements, but that's a big reason why our fossil fuel use has decreased. China has... hugely industrialised in an enormous amount, which is why its energy use of every sort, and China's installed more solar panel in the last year. I can't remember the statistic, but than like every other country in the world. They're expanding in every single regard. Now, China has its policies for net zero as well, alongside
but what they've done is they've kept their fossil fuels to help build the net zero part of it, and then they're supplying the rest of the world, and they've also gone to rape Africa and things like that for all these scarce minerals and resources. And her going there makes no sense at all, because she must be going there with a begging bowl. She should be back here in the UK, sorting out the fossil fuels, allowing us to have new oil and gas fields and things like that, so that we can maybe head towards net zero more efficiently without offsetting everything to China.
3 days.
She shouldn't bother.
Spending 3 days talking to our second biggest trading partner is a perfectly sensible thing.
You say that, but the economy is collapsing.
I'm a big critic of the government and its policies, but that... Yeah, I'm not saying that the policies are working. I think the policies suck. But the idea...
She should stay here and fix it.
But the idea that going to China, our second biggest trading partner, to improve economic relations is a perfectly sensible thing.
Not now. She should go another time when she's actually got something to talk about.
Should we move on to the wildfires? I want to show you this very quick clip. This is a Los Angeles resident confronting Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, about the fires. Take a look at this. Here it comes.
You said hold fire in your ear.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
I'm sorry. There's literally... I've tried 5 times. That's why I'm walking around to make the call.
Why is the president not taking your call?
Because it's not going through. So
Why?
I have to get cell service.
So let's get it. Let's get it. I want to be here when you call the president.
I appreciate it. I'm doing that right now. And it's to immediately get reimbursements, individual assistance, and to help you. I'm devastated for you. I'm so sorry, especially for your daughter.
He handled that quite well, to be fair.
Well, he said he was on a call to the president.
Well, maybe he was.
But later on in that clip, she says, look, the water is pouring out down there. Why aren't you using these in the fire hydrants? Why haven't...
Fire hydrants
they were empty. And, you know, she's like, I will go and fill them up myself. Like, will you as well? Will you come and do this? And he's like, oh, I'll do whatever I can. Well, come and do it then. This is what people want from their politicians. They want politicians to actually put their money in where their mouth is and actually go out and do these things and help.
Well, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, they're preparing to flee their £11 million Montecito mansion as the LA wildfires continue. Tragic, isn't it, James?
The wildfires are absolutely tragic, but they're also predictable. The number of extreme weather events that that are happening, wildfires, flooding in Valencia, all of this stuff. You can roll your eyes, Nana.
Come on, man.
But the huge, I mean, we could fill this entire room full of
smoke, hot air,
academic
nonsense.
Publications that show
James,
the connection.
someone got arrested for arson.
Exactly. It's arson. These fires, listen, it's the perfect environment for an arsonist, and that's what these people have been doing.
OK, there is a reason why the fires spread.
No water. Because Gavin Newsom refused to sign a bill that Donald Trump presented because they wanted to protect smelt fish. Gavin Newsom refused to sign the bill. There's no water in California to fight fires.
And somebody set that, so this is arson. And it's typical that the climate people will jump on the bandwagon.
Do you know what Californians need to do?
I'm sorry, it's not jumping on the bandwagon. There is a reason why the number of wildfires around the world is increasing.
It was the same with the fires.
And the reason why all sorts of extreme weather events are increasing. Right? The reason why there are hot bulb temperature events in South Asia, the reason why it's 30 degrees above average in the Antarctica and Antarctica simultaneously, the reason why there was the flooding in Valencia.
I tell you what,
this isn't all arsonists.
There's also a reason why
the people who are the arsonists are the fossil fuel companies.
Why these places in America, like California and other places, have terrible conditions for their people is because they've got Democrats running the place. What the Californians and what so many people in America need to do is actually shake things up and change their elected officials.
They've got rid of Biden. Okay, hold on. Listen, listen. Okay, stop, please. We've got to go to the news. But the reason a lot of fires started because of arson, and it was the same in Greece as well. And if you put that in an environment where it's lovely and hot and dry, then you're going to have a massive fire, and that's what's happened there. So maybe people say it's global warming. What do you think? Lots more still to come. First, let's get your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. 10:32 exactly. The top story this hour. The UK government's counter-extremism unit is investigating Elon Musk over controversial tweets targeting senior politicians. He called safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips a rape genocide apologist and suggested she deserves to be in prison, while accusing the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, of failing to act on rape gangs. Experts are now warning that Musk's posts could incite violence, as threats against female MPs like Miss Phillips may constitute terrorism, they say. It comes after a man was charged with sending malicious messages to Jess Phillips following those remarks from Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is under fire today after a poll's revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, do support a new national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Conservative call for an inquiry earlier this week. But there are party divisions, with senior figures like Labour's Andy Burnham supporting a limited probe. The Greater Manchester Mayor says an inquiry would hold authorities accountable, with survivors claiming key issues remain unresolved despite an investigation in 2022. But the government says it is focused on action, not delays, and Downing Street insists it's committed to leaving no stone unturned. The Chancellor's trip to China is going ahead despite opposition calls to cancel it after the pound hit a 14-month low and borrowing costs have soared. Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy's defended Rachel Reeves' visit, saying it's vital to maintain strong ties with the world's second-largest economy. Government borrowing costs, rising since August, have now climbed further today, spiking fears of tax hikes or possible spending cuts. Meanwhile, analysts link the pound's dip to broader economic concerns, with the Treasury ruling out any emergency intervention. Officials insist, though, they are balancing immediate economic stability with long-term growth plans. Well, as we were just hearing from Ben, Nana and the panel, at least 10 people have died in wildfires tearing through Los Angeles, with high winds threatening to spread the flames even further. 5 fires are still burning and a man has been detained over the latest, but authorities say there's no conclusive proof they were started deliberately. Officials warn the death toll, though, could rise further as it's been too dangerous to access some of the worst hit areas. And adding to the chaos, an alert was mistakenly sent to every Los Angeles resident, warning of an imminent blaze about to sweep through the city. But in a very different weather picture, Britain shivered through its coldest night this winter so far, with temperatures plunging last night to minus 14 degrees in Outnahara in Scotland. A yellow ice warning remains for southwest England and Wales for another half an hour or so, as heavy snow and flooding cause widespread disruption. Rail services are severely affected, with ice preventing trains from running at London's Charing Cross and delays reported across Northern, Merseyside, ScotRail and Great Western Railway networks. Buses have replaced trains on some routes in Wales, and Transport for Wales is warning of track damage from freezing conditions. That's the news on GB News. A full roundup at 11 o'clock, and Ben and Nana back with you after this break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Morning. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Another cold one out there today. Many places, though, will be fine and bright with quite a bit of sunshine, but temperatures are widely well below freezing to start off with. There's also a bit of fog around too, and things could be quite icy, particularly in the southwest, where we've got some outbreaks of rain and hill snow and a few snow showers still going over northern Scotland. But I say for most places it's going to be dry and bright. Cloudier than yesterday across parts of the south, with some outbreaks of mostly light rain still in the southwest. Elsewhere, generally dry, fine and sunny once any fog has cleared, but temperatures struggling. Parts of the Midlands may not get much above freezing, and generally only 2 or 3 degrees at best for most. Pretty quickly, those temperatures will be back down below freezing this evening as well, which means it could again turn icy. Mostly, though, temperatures holding up a little in the southwest. Bit more breeze here with quite a bit of cloud along the south coast. Some of that cloud threatening into parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, but most of England and Scotland dry and sunny, and as I said, pretty quickly those temperatures will be dropping like a stone. So again, potentially things could turn icy, but not too many showers by this stage, just a few drifting down on some of those North Sea coast. Fog is likely to thicken up again this evening, and it could last well into the weekend, particularly over parts of the Midlands and eastern England. Could get very dense in some locations here. Further west, the rain is likely to pep up in southwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland, again with some hill snow mixed in. So ice and fog around on Saturday morning. But again, for many places, it's a dry and a fine day. The fog is, though, likely to be a bit more stubborn, a bit slower to clear over the Midlands and eastern England. In the west, Wales, southwest England, Northern Ireland, quite a grey day tomorrow with some light rain and drizzle. But a good chunk of Scotland, Northern England and much of southern England, dry, fine. And it will be quite sunny once more, but once more it will be another cold day, slowly turning milder on Sunday.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. On the A1M in South Yorkshire, there's a lane closed southbound after an accident between junctions 36 and 35. From Doncaster to the M18, it's taking around 3/4 of an hour in queues from junction 37 at Mar. In Nottinghamshire, the A57, it's closed each way off the A60 west of Worksop after an accident. In Lincolnshire, the A17 is closed each way west of Lebanon after an accident. In Ceredigion, the A44 is closed in both directions west of Pontywydd after a lorry went off the road yesterday. In Northamptonshire, the A43 is closed in both directions between junction 15A of the M1 and the A5 at Toaster after an accident causing delays. In Gloucestershire, the A40 is closed each way where a vehicle overturned between Chesgrove and Huntley. On the M27 in Hampshire, there's a lane closed westbound where someone's broken down between junctions 10 and 9 towards Fareham. And in Cornwall, the A30 is closed eastbound towards Redruth for an investigation.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back. Now, the Foreign Secretary has said that Shamima Begum will not be allowed to return to the UK.
Now, this comes despite calls from Donald Trump's counter-terrorism chief for British members of the so-called Islamic State to be repatriated.
So, is it right to ban Shamima Begum from the UK, as suggested by friend of the channel, Sebastian Gorka, who is now serving in Trump's administration? We're joined by former senior military intelligence officer Philip Ingram and the human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Good morning to you both. Thank you for your company. Mr. Khan, why shouldn't she be allowed back to the UK?
You mean, so why should she, I'm guessing you want to ask me?
Well, I knew you were going to say why she should, but what are the reasons why she shouldn't? I thought I'd ask that to you first.
Oh, OK. I don't think there are any reasons. I mean, she was British. I don't believe the decision to revoke her British citizenship. I think we would be safer if she was here. I think, if she needs to be punished for anything she did, that's the right way to do. She should be punished in this country. We need to take responsibility. We're claiming she's Bangladeshi for some reason. She never was. She isn't. She was born in the UK. As far as we know, she's never even been to Bangladesh. I mean, I just don't see how we can force her onto that.
Why would we be safer if she were here? I'm confused as to how that would be the case.
Yeah, but because we can keep an eye on her. I mean, like we know now, and like people are saying, like the Trump administration is claiming, and probably is true, that soon these people, obviously, there's no control over these people anymore. Soon the camp will probably be disbanded. No one will know where these people are going. The way the UK government has treated her.
Why should we keep an eye on her? Her crimes were committed there. She's in a camp there. Why do we need to pay to keep an eye on her? How much do you think it costs to keep an eye on one person in that way?
I don't know, but that's the thing. I mean, are we just talking about the money then? Is that the thing? I'm talking about security.
It's all of it, isn't it? It's all of it.
So I think it would actually, if we keep her closer, we keep an eye. If she has to be jailed, she has to be in jail. But I think we would be safer if she's in a British jail where we know what she's doing and where she is.
Well, we know where she is now. She's in a camp in Syria, which would be good if she stayed there. Philip Ingram, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I don't think she should be allowed to come back at all. It would cost in excess of £1 million a year just to monitor her, to keep her safe. I have run surveillance operations. I've commanded a surveillance unit. And therefore, I know that would be the absolute minimum to monitor her. Now, that is an awful lot of nurses, an awful lot of teachers, and I wonder if our other guest would decide which ones would be sacked from the local hospital and whether he'd be happy that she lived in a house beside him. But you're putting the legal side, putting that to one side. Legally, her case has been taken to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has looked at confidential evidence that's been brought by the security services and everything else, and refused her permission to come back and try and regain her citizenship. She's not a British citizen anymore. She's not our responsibility. And therefore...
I've said that we'll be safer, though, if she's here.
No, we will be no safer whatsoever. We are importing a known threat. That is why the Supreme Court has not allowed her to come back. We have got, as of today, 900 active investigations into about 3,000 people. Our security services and our counter-terror police cannot keep an eye on all of those people. Why should we import more that are going to cost us as taxpayers more money and going to mean that there's less to invest in our NHS, for our nurses, our doctors, less to invest in teachers for people out of there? Why bring a burden in when we don't need to?
Yeah. Shoaib Khan, can I ask you, please, Shamima Begum, when she was interviewed from her refugee camp, previously said that the Manchester Arena bombings were justified because of Western airstrikes in the Middle East. Do you condemn those comments?
Oh, well, I'm not sure why you're asking me about her comments. I don't really understand what the reason being.
Sorry to interject, Shoaib. Sorry to interrupt before you've answered the question. The reason being is because that is a key reason why many people don't want her back here. They say that kind of comment proves that she's not regretful for her actions, that she's not fully assimilated with the British way of life. So, do you condemn those comments? And if you do, which I hope you would do, you should agree then surely that doesn't show that she's transformed her way of thinking.
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. I mean, I don't care. She might be the worst person in the world. I'm not defending what she says or what she believes. I'm saying she was a British national. She was born in the UK, just like me, just like you, just like anyone. I don't think as soon as someone does something, even the most heinous crime in the world, she's no longer British. I mean, that's a medieval, that's an uncivilized way of thinking. We don't banish people anymore. We don't exile people. Just drive them to the edge of town.
But she's foregone her citizenship, though, Shara.
But she shouldn't have. That's
she
the
has,
point.
and that's part of law. That's part of, we have it in our law that we can strip someone of their citizenship from this country if they behave in a certain manner. That is our law, and she has foregone it.
That's what I'm saying. I don't agree with that. I don't think it should be that way.
Well, that's the way it is.
If, for instance, it was her and a white person exactly in the same
situation. Nothing to do with that.
No, but it is. That's what I'm saying. So if it was her, you know, two schoolgirls, exactly the same, and they had both gone there, our law would not have allowed us to revoke the citizenship of the other person.
Well, that's because they wouldn't have had dual... Well, if they don't have anywhere else they can go, then we're stuck with them. But if they do... but if they do, that's irrelevant, though.
She can't go to Bangladesh.
Well,
she's not Bangladesh.
Listen, it doesn't matter. There was the option for her to go there, and she's not coming here. That's the bottom line.
Philip, we've got 10 seconds left. Last word to you, Philip.
She's entitled to Bangladeshi citizenship under international rules. The UK hasn't broken international law by revoking her citizenship whatsoever. She's a threat to this country. She shouldn't be brought back.
Thank you both. Appreciate your company. Sharab Khan, human rights lawyer and former military intelligence officer Philip Ingram. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. All right, still to come. Are the government one step closer to delivering their plan for change? As the Home Office reveals that the UK has removed the highest number of illegal migrants since 2018. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not too hard to find something a little warmer than the UK. Around the Mediterranean, temperatures are generally in the low teens, but it's not completely dry. A few showers are possible across Cyprus this weekend, so looking fairly wet across southern Italy and Croatia, although that rain will be scooting away by Sunday. Plenty of sunshine across the east and the south coast of Spain, and lots of sunshine for the Canaries. It will be quite breezy in Madeira, quite a lot of cloud likely here over the next few days as well, turning a little colder in Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience. Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of plantation south. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do. And suddenly, sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana. Which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel. And again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
That. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy, and you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score to death, but this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Thank you, Britain.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for subscribing.
Thank you for your support.
It's you that make us the People's Channel.
As we reflect on our journey so far, we're filled with immense gratitude.
You mean the world to us. We couldn't have reached this point without you.
As a very special thank you, we are giving you the chance to win one of 50 GB News thank you boxes. They're worth £50 each.
For full terms and conditions, and to enter, just go to gbnews.com/thank you.
Hello, welcome back. It's 10 to 11 on GB News. This is Britain's Newsroom with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akweer.
Now, the UK has removed the highest number of illegal migrants since 2018.
Hooray! Well, according to data from the Home Office, since the July elections, 16,400 people have been removed.
So are the government one step closer to delivering on their plan for change? Let's talk to political commentator and migrant expert Dr. Mike Jones. Mike, thank you very much for joining us. So these stats, they look good. We were moving more. Is there a devil in the detail, or are they actually correct?
Well, on the surface, it looks great for Labour. As you rightly point out, 16,400 have been deported since Labour were elected. Forced returns are up by about 23%. And Labour is saying, listen, we scrapped the Rwanda plan. We reallocated resources to deporting people. It's all great, you know. But dig a little deeper, the devil in the detail, as you call it, and it's not as rosy as you might think, for two reasons. Firstly, most of these are voluntary returns. Only about 2,500 are actual forced returns, and forced returns are essential for increasing that deterrence factor. You know, 2,500 is a fraction of the people who cross the channel. It's a fraction of the people who overstay their visa, and it's a fraction of the people who might come here through other clandestine means. The second and more important reason, in my view, is the actual national groups being deported. So if you look at numbers from 2023, people being removed are from countries like China, Albania, India. You've got smaller groups from Lithuania and Poland. But look at the people who are crossing the English Channel. Yeah. They're from Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Sudan, Eritrea, and so on. So unless you're deporting those people en masse, there's going to be no deterrence effect.
Yeah, Mike, I think it's Sajid Javid's brother who's heading up the Home Office now, well, the deportation part of it. And with the Home Secretary, they've agreed, as you said, to get rid of the easy deportations, those from Vietnam, those from Albania. So, and as you said, since Labour won the election in July, 25,000 small boat arrivals have come. So 25,000 minus the 16 they've kicked out, you're still net positive 9,000 people who shouldn't be here. Don't
we have agreements for people coming from Afghanistan and Iran and Iraq that they are able to come to this country anyway through some sort of settlement schemes or anything like that? Do we have anything like that?
We previously did, yeah, for Afghanistan. There were those who were provided asylum, Afghanis who helped British troops during, the military intervention there. We also had a sort of resettlement program under David Cameron for Syrian nationals. But I don't think safe and legal routes is the way here, because most of the people crossing the English Channel are young men, and they're not fleeing from war zones. And any sort of safe and legal routes policy would have to be capped, and it would have to prioritise the most vulnerable people and people fleeing from war zones. So all safe and legal routes would actually do is just increase immigration.
OK, Mike. Do you think Labour are going to get a grip of the small boats crisis, just finally? Got 20 seconds, sorry to push you.
I think they'll make progress on the low-hanging fruit, but by and large, the numbers will remain between, 30 to 40,000 in terms of illegal migrants. So I don't see much progress.
Right.
Lovely. Happy New Year. Thank you, Dr. Mike Jones. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's the thing, you see. It sounds great, but as I thought, the devil would be in the detail, and the bottom line is that the people who are coming are not the people that they're sending back.
Yeah, easy deportations. Vietnam, Albania. Meanwhile, 9,000 extra have come since July. Labour won the election in July. Still to come, GB News exclusive with the youth worker who blew the whistle on Britain's rape gang epidemic. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News, the People's Channel.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for another update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's going to be another cold one out there today. For many, fine, blue sky, plenty of sunshine, but it is quite grey across southwest England, parts of South Wales. It's going to be very frosty tonight with some fog patches. High pressure is moving in, but the cloud in the southwest is from this weather front. It's not moving very far. It's not particularly active, bringing a bit of light rain and drizzle, maybe even the odd flake of snow over the hills. Parts of the south coast may also see a little light rain. One or two showers drifting in off the North Sea into eastern England, but for the vast majority it's dry, and for much of northern England, East Anglia, most of Scotland, it's sunny, but it is cold. Temperatures struggling to get much above freezing. Slowly turning a little milder in the southwest, but of course here it's going to stay fairly glum. As we go through this evening, still a few spots of rain and drizzle coming in across the south coast. Small chance it could be a little icy, but generally, as the cloud continues here, it'll stay above freezing through this evening. Elsewhere, though, hard frost forming and some thick fog patches are also likely. Still a few showers just getting in from the North Sea into the coast of northeast England, across northern Scotland, mostly rain on the coast. But again, that could turn things a little icy in places as temperatures really drop away overnight. Light winds, clear skies. Some thickening fog patches likely over the Midlands, northwest England, the Welsh Marches and East Anglia. Staying quite cloudy for West Wales, southwest England and Northern Ireland. We'll see a little rain trickling in here too. That will keep the temperatures up. May well stay above freezing in the far west, but for many will be well below freezing. Rural spots where there's snow on the ground, -16, maybe -17 Celsius. So a hard frost. Will be some fog patches over parts of England and Wales that could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Damp conditions for Northern Ireland, patchy rain trickling into West Wales and eventually into parts of Western Scotland as well. For many central and eastern areas, though, dry, fine and sunny, but it will still be cold.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£50,000 in tax-free cash is like having over £4,000 each month to play with for a whole year. And it could be yours in the biggest Great British giveaway so far. That could be a holiday each month, your mortgage covered, or just the ability to send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And fashionistas are keen to see which new trends are set to hit the catwalk.
Well, our next guest is very well placed to share her predictions with us after being a contestant on hit ITV series Dress the Nation, as well as being an upcycling and sewing consultant.
Wow. Joining us now is Tendai Murewe. I want to go back to you appearing on the ITV Dress the Nation.
Right.
Tell us about that experience. What was that like?
Oh, that was one of my highlights as an upcycling consultant. I learned to sew in my kitchen 5 years ago. And then, during COVID, just making masks. Then the next thing I was on a Dress the Nation, making dresses in front of TV. Yeah, it was just incredible. I think we all had all these clothes that we have, but we don't know what to do with them. So mainly I started with men's jackets, taking off the sleeves and putting it like a print on.
I've tried this. I've tried taking off my sleeves before. I now have about 3 jackets with no sleeves. I never managed to put them back on.
You need to come to a workshop. You need to come to a workshop.
I need an upcycling consultant. 2025. What can we expect, fashion-wise?
I think bold prints are back. people are loving. I think you walk on the streets in frollouts and oversized men's jackets.
So the exact opposite. We have drastically underperformed this morning. You're just saying not like us.
We just woke up this morning and thought it's winter, it's cold, it's grey.
Grey, miserable.
Is that not the way to go?
No, it is. It's still, I think because fashion is expressive. It's whatever you want to express yourself.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, it's 11 o'clock. It's Friday, the 10th of January. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Ben Leo and me, Nana Aquia.
Very good morning to you. Thank you for your company. Now, could there be a split in the Labour Party over the rape gang scandal? The Mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, backs a limited, quote-unquote, national inquiry.
At a GB News exclusive, Charlie Peters sits down with Jane Senior, the youth worker who blew the whistle on Britain's rape gang epidemic.
It needs to go one step further and it needs to look at those senior professionals that were complicit, ignored this, covered it up. You know, because we sit here and you look at not just Rotherham, but you look across the UK. I am not aware of any professional that's ever been held to account.
Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, heads to China. That's despite growing market turmoil back home as borrowing costs spiral completely out of control.
Elon Musk's tweets are probed by the Home Office Counter-terrorism unit as the government raises the alarm over a risk to Britain after the tech billionaire's recent comments on grooming gangs.
Devastation in Los Angeles as fires continue to rage there. 10 are now confirmed dead as thousands of homes are destroyed and almost 200,000 people ordered to evacuate the area as President Joe Biden promises to spare no expense to rebuild.
Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires to ever hit Los Angeles, ever.
And farming protests continue today for the third consecutive day. Tractors will be taken to the roads in their fight against Labour's family farm inheritance tax.
Apparently, Nana, last year, according to the Met Office and other groups, was the hottest on record. Would you believe it?
Well, on record or since the planet began. I mean, they're very different things, aren't they? I think they actually said since we know of, which is about 149 years or so of records against a planet that is billions and billions of years old. In fact,
small data set.
We don't even know how old the planet is, to be honest. So,
did you think it was particularly hot last year? I don't think we had a summer, did we?
No, and you know, cold kills more than heat. So, if you are looking for the planet to slightly warm up, I think that would be in many areas a good thing. And also, where did they take those temperature recordings? Was it on the tarmac near an airfield?
Yeah, was it the tarmac at Heathrow? And I'm sure, Nana, there's a green tax or something we could introduce to get those temperatures down. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, you
Just
pay
chuck
the
some
tax
money at it.
That's all good, isn't it? Offset your carbon so it's like 1%. Let China build all the gas and coal stations. Yeah. But what do you think? Let's get your thoughts. Post them, gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom. Just coming up to 4 minutes past 11. The top story, the government's counter-extremism unit is investigating Elon Musk over controversial tweets targeting senior politicians. Elon Musk accused Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips of being a rape genocide apologist who, he said, deserves to be in prison. He also criticised the Prime Minister Keir Starmer over the rape gangs. Experts warn that the comments could incite violence, with threats against female MPs like Miss Phillips potentially amounting to terrorism. It follows a man being charged with sending malicious messages to Jess Phillips after those comments from Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is under fire today after a poll revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, do support a national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Conservative call for an inquiry this week. But there are party divisions, with senior figures in the Labour Party, like Andy Burnham, supporting a limited probe. The Greater Manchester Mayor says an inquiry would hold authorities accountable, with survivors claiming that key issues remain unresolved despite a previous investigation in 2022. But the government says it's focused on action, not delays, and Downing Street insists it's committed to leaving no stone unturned. Boosting UK trade or neglecting the economy, that is the row surrounding Chancellor Rachel Reeves' trip to China. She's meeting China's Vice Premier and UK firms as government borrowing costs have hit their highest level since 2008. Critics, including Conservatives, argue she should stay home to address the pound's fall and rising debt. But economists warn of spending cuts or tax hikes ahead of the fiscal update in March, while the Treasury insists markets are stable. Former Chancellor Philip Hammond says Reeves' trip shouldn't be cancelled, though, despite the mounting pressure. Out-of-control wildfires in Los Angeles have killed at least 10 people and forced nearly 180,000 to flee their homes. One fire in the Pacific Palisades has destroyed over 5,300 structures, making it now the city's most destructive blaze so far. Meanwhile, a new fire in West Hills has sparked fresh fears as police arrested a man on suspicion of arson. And insurance losses are expected to exceed $8 billion, with officials warning the crisis is far from over. Here, the UK has recorded its coldest night of the winter so far, minus 14 degrees in northern Scotland, with more freezing temperatures expected in the coming days. Yellow warnings for ice and snow remain across Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but they're set to expire later today. Hundreds of schools, meanwhile, in Scotland and Wales have closed today as wintry weather grips the nation. Well, the Director of Weather Trending, John Hammond, spoke to us earlier here on GB News. He says freezing fog is expected to cause travel disruption in England and in Wales.
If you are journeying out, just do allow a bit of extra time because you will have to scrape the windscreen surfaces. Very icy, as you mentioned, warnings in force. And frankly, those temperatures are not going to creep much above freezing all day long. So typically we're looking at highs of, 0 to 3 degrees. So nothing in terms of snowfall is really going to thaw much, certainly in the shade. If you've got snow cover, you'll come back home tonight with just about the same amount.
Safety fears over speeding have been raised in a new RAC survey, with 72% of drivers admitting they see speed limits as targets rather than maximums. The poll found 81% regularly observe excessive speeding, and over half believe there's a culture in the UK that accepts it. Government figures show 314 road deaths last year involved speeding drivers. That is the highest in a decade. The government's now working on its first road safety strategy in years to address the concerns. And police in the Highlands say 2 more lynx have been spotted in the same area where a pair of the wildcats were captured earlier this week. Officers are warning the public not to approach the animals, with specially trained teams working to capture them. The Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, now caring for those captured wildcats, has called their illegal release highly irresponsible. Investigations are now ongoing to uncover the full story behind those incidents. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, it's over to Britain's Newsroom.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning to you. It's 8 minutes past 11. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Ben Leo, and Nana Akweer.
Right, well, Labour Mayor for Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, has distanced himself from Sir Keir Starmer and the government's stance on a national inquiry into the Grooming rape gang scandal.
Speaking to local radio last night, he says he thinks there, quote, is the case for a limited national inquiry, whatever that means, in order to hold people to account.
Well, GB News can now also exclusively reveal that over 75% of the UK adults want a national inquiry into grooming gangs.
And this morning, the Labour peer, Harriet Harman, has called for a mini-inquiry into any potential race issues. A mini-inquiry.
So not a limited one, then? What's the difference between a limited and mini?
I don't know.
Well, our national reporter Charlie Peters has been speaking to whistleblower Jane Senior. He began by asking her about what she made of MPs voting against a national inquiry.
I think, first of all, it should have been a vote where MPs were not going to be whipped. They could, decide themselves. Yeah, and I think there should be a national inquiry. I think it needs to be very different to what people are kind of shouting for. I don't think it needs to take 7 years. I don't think it needs to be an investigation, inquiry that, just gives the statistics after a year. I think it needs to go one step further, and it needs to look at those senior professionals that were complicit, ignored this, covered it up. Because we sit here and you look at not just Rotherham, but you look across the UK, I am not aware of any professional that's ever been held to account for this, either in any town or the 50 towns that you've identified at the GB News.
The J report from 2022, the ICSA inquiry, a lot of people are saying we've already had a report, we don't need another one. What's been your response to that perspective?
I do believe that we need to get them 20 recommendations in place, and again, I think it needs to go one step further, and I think we need to get professionals in this area, we need to get victim survivors and parents around the table and kind of look at how we kind of bulk them out and expand on them and get them in place. Mandatory reporting, I think, is an excellent idea. I think in its current format, it needs so much more work doing on it.
So those 20 recommendations, you think a new report specifically into these grooming gangs would bring in a whole new raft of recommendations?
No, I don't necessarily think it would. I think it may fetch some more, but I don't think it's going to completely change, because I think everybody would call for mandatory reporting. Everybody should be in a position, if they are aware or even suspect that a child's been abused, that they have a duty to report it. But it just needs to go that one step further, because when you do report it, and what they're saying is if the person that you report it to ignores it, it can become a criminal offence. Is there going to be protection, as in whistleblower protection as well, for those that are actually reporting it?
There are also, though, issues specific to grooming gangs that aren't included in the ICSA inquiry. There's no focus on deporting perpetrators. So there could be a recommendation from a new inquiry saying if someone's committing this sort of heinous abuse, they should be deported after they're convicted.
Yeah, and I think there would be other recommendations if it was just been focusing on grooming gangs, and also we need to get away from this language that, if we call them grooming gangs, we call them rape gangs, we call them paedophiles. It's not about it being far right, and it's not about it being racist. It's about calling it for what it is. These are children whose lives have been turned upside down, that have they've been raped, they've been tortured, they've been trafficked, and yet we're arguing over what terminology to use. Well, shall we just get round the table and actually talk about what we can do to stop this?
There's been a lot of conversation about Elon Musk, a lot of conversation about the politics, but not enough focus, I feel, on the survivors, their voices and their stories. Do you think they've been sidelined a bit by this debate?
Yes, I do, yeah. And I had a survivor message me yesterday, quite upset, quite angry. She's done no campaigning for a few years because she had a baby, and she just messaged me and she just said, enough is enough, I'm fed up of people speaking for me and what happened to me and what should come next. I want to get back campaigning again. I want to be speaking out. I want to be telling it from my point of view. She said, I'm just fed up of watching people on the TV making it all about them. And it's like, why are politicians ripping lumps out of each other over this? Why are they not all on the same page? I don't know. Sat round a table and saying, where do we go with this? How do we move it forward? What do we need to do? What do our constituents want? What do victims want? What do survivors want? What do parents want? And how can we move it forward?
A lot of survivors have shared their anger with GB News at the fact that it took 4 months almost for the government to respond to them in Oldham and rejecting that government-led inquiry. And it was also revealed that Jess Phillips, the Safeguarding Minister, hadn't spoken to any of the survivors from Oldham before she made that decision. She didn't understand the local issues that caused them to make that request. Do you think that's a sign that the government doesn't take survivors seriously enough when it comes to their demands, that they just reject them after a long delay?
I think it's a very poor decision. 4 months is a long time to wait for an answer, but I don't think anything, be it reviews, independent inquiries, should be done without listening to the voice of those that it affects. I do lots of reviews at charity that I work at, but I actually speak to the people that I'm doing the review on to get their voice in there, to get their opinion. Do they all agree? Of course they don't, but it doesn't mean we don't listen to what they've got to say. They've been silenced as children. They've been silenced long enough. Now it's their time to shine, have a voice and get some answers.
Jane, what would be your message to Sir Keir Starmer tonight on this issue of the grooming gangs inquiry?
Please listen to what your people, the people that voted you in, are saying. Listen to the people that are affected by this. But more importantly, allow your own politicians to decide themselves without being threatened with a whip.
Wow, a moving interview there from Charlie Peters and Jane Senior. That was the lady, by the way, who she worked for the Labour Council, and she complained to the Labour Party about bullying from colleagues because she blew the whistle. She asked for a meeting with Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party at the time, and he ignored her.
Yeah.
He said, no meeting, sorry.
Well, listen, a government spokesperson from the Home Office issued the following statement. No child should ever suffer sexual abuse or exploitation, and it is paramount we do more to protect vulnerable children, which is why we are working at pace across government to drive forward real action to implement the recommendations of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse.
OK, and in letters responding to Oldham Council, Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips has said that she understands, quote, the strength of feeling that a further inquiry into child sexual exploitation in Oldham should be undertaken. Phillips added that she was very sorry for the delay in responding to both of the executive's letters.
But she said that she believed it is for Oldham Council alone to decide to commission an inquiry into child sexual exploitation locally, rather than for the government to intervene.
OK, we're joined now again by political commentator Kane Blackwell and journalist James Snyder in the studio. Welcome back, you two. Kane, Jane Senior, they're saying that victims feel sidelined amid all this furore and the media attention and the tweeting from America. And she said that they're fed up of seeing people speaking on TV. Why can't politicians just all be on the same page?
100%. And, you know, Jane Senior and Maggie Oliver and others, Sammy Woodhouse, you know, these people are heroes. You know, they are modern-day heroines, and they, you know, what they have done is shine a light on this issue for so many years when others were happy to cover it up. And, you know, I think the problem is that the line that Labour are parroting at the moment is that, you know, we have had inquiries, we need to implement the J report, you know, this is all old news. The problem is we're getting new information every single day about these rape gangs. We are hearing now, we have new information that this is happening in over 50 constituencies across the UK. If we knew about this when the J report was going on, one, why was that not investigated as a whole? And the point is, if we didn't, now we need an inquiry into this. We need to know who covered this up, why they covered it up, and what is still going on now. Are these, you know, grooming gangs still active now? I think we all know that they are. And we need to actually look into this and actually get some clear answers for victims, but not just victims, but for the whole of the British people. This is a national disgrace and is a shame in our country, and we must root it out now.
All right, James, what do you think of the Labour Party's handling of this? I mean, Jane Senior there said that we should listen to what the people who voted for them said, and also what the survivors are saying. Yet Jess Phillips, when she initially declined the inquiry, hadn't even spoken to any of the victims. So what is your view on the handling of this by the Labour government?
I think Jess Phillips' letter was weird and tone deaf. To be honest, I think all of the politicians involved pretty much have shamed themselves on both sides about it. And I think what Jane Senior there was saying about not listening to survivors and the sort of political bickering over it. I mean, the point about the J inquiry recommendations being implemented, none of which have. It landed on the Home Secretary's desk in, I think, the summer of 2023. We're 18 months on, none of them have. One of those recommendations is to set up a child protection agency, and it seems to me that that should happen immediately. People like Jane Senior should be on it, and it should be that body, not our political class, that body that should have an inquiry so that it knows what it should be doing. and it should be empowered in order to do that. I think that the little political stunt that was pulled in Parliament by the Tories yesterday or the day before, putting a wrecking amendment which would have made a bill which had a few small decent things for vulnerable kids that aren't in school in them, was another shameful thing from the person who was kids minister and was women's minister. So, like what she said.
But nothing would have happened anyway. I mean, they haven't got enough majority to have any effect on it.
Yeah, fine. So the point is, it's a political stunt. It's not really trying to get to the issue. What I think all of the politicians should be calling for, and what we should all be calling for, is like, get the pass the law, do whatever you need to do to get the Child Protection Agency straight away, that has resources, that has powers, and then it should set up its own inquiries, however it thinks to do. It should have people like Jane Senior advising it, and then we can find out exactly what needs to be done.
In Kemi Badenoch's defence here, you know, actually getting this on the floor of the House as a debate is so important. What Keir Starmer should have done is have a free vote on this issue, so all MPs, regardless of fear or favour, could have had a proper vote on this.
Yeah, what's he afraid of? Why does he not want everyone to have their own freedom of speech on this one, and see where it goes? But up next, our panel, stay with us as more strikes loom, and you won't believe what sector's threatening to strike again. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, in the first Film Awards ceremony of the season, the Golden Globes 2025, we need to get used to that, commenced overnight.
Stephanie Tetchy to talk about all of this. Well,
good morning.
Morning.
Well, we know the Oscars are like the creme de la creme of film award shows, but it's the Golden Globes which sets the trend, because who we see picking up on the Golden Globes, we tend to see picking up at the BAFTAs, at the Oscars. So last night was a good indicator of what's to come. I would say it was a big year for musicals. We've had this film, Emilia Perez, starring Selena Gomez, Zoe Saldana. It's about a Mexican drug cartel who changes gender, and it's an operatic musical. So the plot sounds crazy, and in fact, it's a musical as well. It was a big night for Demi Moore.
Oh, I love
At the age of 62, she's just picked up her first film award for The Substance, Best Actress.
Well done to her.
It's an amazing film. Ellie, I know you're a big fan of Wicked.
Yes, I watched it for the second time yesterday.
I think I'm about to watch it for the third time because it's that great. Last week, it eclipsed Mamma Mia to become the highest-grossing film for a Broadway musical. Unfortunately, it wasn't a big night for their acting, including Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. They totally got snubbed for awards, but it did win Best Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Prize. It was a big night for the Brits. Baby Reindeer, Richard Gadd, he picked up for the Best Limited Drama Series.
I'm surprised at that, because Baby Reindeer's a bit dark.
That's a lot of people ask him, how has this film got so much success when it's based on a dark plot? And he says, you know what, it's basically human life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. 11:23, Ben and Nana with you on Britain's Newsroom, only on GB News.
Right, still with us as political commentator Kane Blackwell and also journalist James Schneider. Right, did you guess who it is that is going on strike or planning to go on strike again?
Kane, any ideas? Well, it's written on your piece of paper.
I was asking them if they guessed it at home, and listeners whether they guessed. Who is it, Kane? Tell them.
Teachers. The teachers.
With the huge holidays.
Well, indeed. You know, I mean, I think the problem with what is going on now is Labour have promised the world to teachers, to railway drivers, to everyone, basically, to say, you know, you can have this new pay rise, you can have that, we're going to give you all this money. And actually what they've realised is they actually can't afford to. At least in government, when the Conservatives were there, we actually did say, we can't afford this. We can't afford to do these things. Now, everything is a political choice in politics and in government, so, you know, politics is about choices. So there are ways, if you wanted to give more money, but that might mean cutting foreign aid. That might mean, you know, reducing other sorts of things. But this is the political choices that people have to understand. And if Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer and the Labour Party talk to people about, you know, these issues in an election, and then when they get into government, decide, actually, we can't do this now, they need to be honest with people, and that's their failure.
I'm teasing, by the way, about teachers with huge holidays. I'm just winding you up there. People are listening. James Schneider.
I agree with Kane that politics is about choices, and they're making the wrong choice here. What they've offered is a 0.2% pay rise after pay for teachers has fallen by 20% since 2010. The biggest problem in the profession is challenges with recruitment and retention. Teachers get burnt out and leave. There was a survey last year that found only 45% of teachers are satisfied with their jobs. Many are thinking about leaving. And a big part of it's not only about pay, but a big part of the problem is about pay. But another part of the problem is being stretched and not being able to deliver for their students. And part of the reason why they're rejecting this pay deal is it's unfunded. So it means that extra 0.2%, which, OK, is not very much, but that has to be found from somewhere else within the budget. So that might mean fewer books, whatever it might be. And the teachers don't want to get a piddling pay rise, but even that is off the backs of their students. So I think they're making...
And by that, you mean that the money that's allocated to the schools, they'd have to find the pay rise from that money?
Right. So there'd be no new money to pay for it. So the money would have to come out of the budget for other things. Right. So Kane is right that politics is about choices, and here the government has made the wrong choice. If we want to have better education for our kids, we need to have more teachers. We need teachers not burning out and quitting the profession after 5, 10 years. We need to have happier teachers, and part of that, it's not all to do with pay, but part of that is to do with pay. Most people at home, and all of us sitting here, if our pay had been cut 20% in the last 14 years, we'd be pretty annoyed about it.
Well, hold on, that is by the fact of inflation, you're saying that. It's not...
Yes, in real terms, their pay has fallen
but they're
by
not alone.
20%.
Like, you just said that, so let me just tell you now that I know that the kind of pay that someone in the media would have been given about 20 years ago, I've been in it 30 years, I know, I don't look that old, but I have, and I can tell you now that you'd actually almost be paid the same amount as you would have been about 20 years ago as now. So they're not alone, it's happening with everybody. So we can't just... literally across the board, all over.
It isn't happening...
With the majority.
OK, first of all, that is the biggest problem facing our country. The fact that the fact that there are so many sectors, so many types of jobs where people are paid less now than they were almost 20 years ago. Yeah. Right? That is the biggest fundamental problem in our country.
I think that's a global phenomenon, though. I don't think that's just it.
It's not, because that isn't happening in lots of other countries. It's happening in some countries. Britain is particularly bad at that. And the way to solve that isn't by setting up nurses against binmen, against media workers, against teachers, whatever it might be. We need to have a strategy which is going to increase the people's pay to deliver better services.
Kane, teachers have had a 17% pay rise in the last 3 years. That's what the Department of Education...
Yeah, but eaten up by inflation, a lot of people haven't got any of that, though.
Who else at home, let me know on your say, who else has had a 17% pay rise in the last 3 years?
It's not a pay rise. Okay, but then it's not a pay rise. It's keeping up with inflation.
But it is a pay rise ultimately because most people...
It's probably below inflation.
Because most people... It's probably about 3 points below inflation, but most people haven't had any pay rises in line with inflation at all. And I think sometimes the public sector workers don't really see what it's like in the private sector, because you wouldn't get a pay rise just because you decide to go on strike. In the private sector, it'd be more like, listen, go and find another job that pays you the wage that you want.
It depends whether you have a trade union. So take over...
Well, it does, but most people in the private sector don't.
No, I know, which is a big problem. But in the private sector, for example, Unite, that has a lot of private sector places, has one quite big pay rises for people in the private sector because workers are able to negotiate together. If you are on your own against your employer, you're going to get screwed over.
But
if you can negotiate with other people. And yes, the reason why part of the reason why the public sector part of the reason why the public sector are able to do it is their higher rates of unionisation.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
The teachers
we in the private sector
can we
should
just
copy
also mention the pensions, because in that sector you also have quite good pensions, which in the private sector most people don't. And I think you need to look at the overall picture. Kane.
But what I would just say is, going back to the sort of original point about choices in politics and stuff like that, one of the problems with government is when you're talking about the money's going to have to come from the budget, it has to come from the education budget. We can't, as a government, for some mad reason, say, you know what, actually, we don't quite need that over there. We'll cut that and actually we'll give it to teachers over here. This is the problem with government. It's not nimble enough. We're not able to say, actually, we want this money over here that actually may be going on, for example, foreign aid or whatever it is.
11 billion on foreign aid.
Exactly. There's lots and lots of stuff we can do. But actually, if we say, oh, we want that for that, we can't do it because government says no. Its computer says no. And this is the problem with government. We actually need to reform our systems because it is actually, you know, it's stagnating our country.
They don't want to do that. That's going to take too long. But then,
it won't be this government. It won't be this government. It wasn't the last Conservative government either. And that's what we.
But then they're going to get the money from VAT on private schools. Oh dear.
Or farmers.
Because they're going to have 6,500 more teachers over Parliament if they can even retain the ones they have. It's not going to work, is it?
Right, thank you both. Appreciate that. Yeah, good point, Kane. Cut the foreign aid, the climate, the absolute claptrap foreign climate aid, £11 billion. Cut it in half if you must. You've got £5 billion to play with.
All right.
Give it to the pensioners, give it to the farmers.
Kane Blackwell and also James Schneider, thank you very much.
Right, time now for your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It is exactly 11:30. The top story this morning. Officials are monitoring Elon Musk's social media posts for potential security risks, according to reports. The Home Office's Homeland Security team began the scrutiny after Musk's controversial comments about Labour's Jess Phillips, calling her a rape genocide apologist. Jess Phillips, who has long campaigned against violence towards women, says threats against her have increased since the post. Meanwhile, Elon Musk has criticised the UK government for rejecting a fresh inquiry into grooming gangs, sparking heated political debate this week. The Home Office has not yet commented on the claims of monitoring. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is under fire after a poll revealed 76% of the public, including 65% of Labour voters, do support a new national inquiry into grooming gangs. The backlash follows Labour MPs rejecting a Conservative call for an inquiry. But there are party divisions among the Labour MPs, with senior figures like Andy Burnham supporting a limited probe. The Mayor of Greater Manchester says an inquiry would hold authorities to account, with survivors claiming key issues remain unresolved despite an earlier investigation. But the government says it's focused on action, not delays, and Downing Street insists it's committed to leaving no stone unturned. Boosting UK trade or neglecting the economy, that is the row surrounding Chancellor Rachel Reeves' trip to China. She's expected to meet China's Vice Premier and UK firms as government borrowing costs have hit their highest level since 2008. Critics, including Conservatives, argue she should stay home, though, to address the pound's fall and rising debt. Economists warn of spending cuts or tax hikes ahead of the fiscal update in March, while the Treasury insists markets are stable. And former Chancellor Philip Hammond says Reeves' trip shouldn't be cancelled despite mounting pressure against her. Los Angeles is continuing to battle its most destructive wildfires in history, with flames forcing almost 180,000 people to flee their homes and, sadly, leaving 10 dead, though that number is expected to rise further. Entire neighbourhoods have been wiped out, with 10,000 structures gone, 60,000 more still at risk as insured losses climb past $8 billion. A man has also been arrested for allegedly starting a new blaze while National Guard troops are patrolling areas to prevent looting, where evacuations are underway. And the UK has recorded its coldest night of the winter so far, minus 14 degrees in northern Scotland, with more freezing temperatures set to come. Yellow warnings for ice and snow remain across Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, but they're set to expire in around half an hour. Meanwhile, hundreds of schools in Scotland and Wales have closed today as the wintry weather grips the nation. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in half an hour, and Ben and Nana back after this break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Time for another update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's going to be another cold one out there today. For many, fine, blue sky, plenty of sunshine, but it is quite grey across southwest England, parts of South Wales. It's going to be very frosty tonight with some fog patches. High pressure is moving in, but the cloud in the southwest is from this weather front. It's not moving very far. It's not particularly active, bringing a bit of light rain and drizzle, maybe even the odd flake of snow over the hills. Parts of the south coast may also see a little light rain. 1 or 2 showers drifting in off the North Sea into eastern England, but for the vast majority it's dry, and for much of northern England, East Anglia, most of Scotland, it's sunny, but it is cold. Temperatures struggling to get much above freezing. Slowly turning a little milder in the southwest, but of course here it's going to stay fairly glum. As we go through this evening, still a few spots of rain and drizzle coming in across the south coast. Small chance it could be a little icy, but generally, as the cloud continues here, it'll stay above freezing through this evening. Elsewhere, though, hard frost forming and some thick fog patches are also likely. Still a few showers just getting in from the North Sea into the coast of northeast England, across northern Scotland, mostly rain on the coast. But again, that could turn things a little icy in places as temperatures really drop away overnight. Light winds, clear skies. Some thickening fog patches likely over the Midlands, northwest England, the Welsh Marches and East Anglia. Staying quite cloudy for West Wales, southwest England and Northern Ireland. We'll see a little rain trickling in here too. That will keep the temperatures up. May well stay above freezing in the far west, but for many will be well below freezing. Rural spots where there's snow on the ground, -16, maybe -17 Celsius. So a hard frost. Will be some fog patches over parts of England and Wales that could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Damp conditions for Northern Ireland, patchy rain trickling into West Wales and eventually into parts of Western Scotland as well. For many central and eastern areas, though, dry, fine and sunny, but it will still be cold.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This Saturday at 8 p.m, tune in to a GB News Investigates documentary as we tell the full story of the grooming gang scandal.
My childhood has been stolen.
We will expose the cover-ups that have kept this national scandal under wraps for decades.
Not one person has been held accountable.
Our investigation uncovers the true scale of this outrage.
I want to see senior officials held legally to account.
On GB News, Grooming Gangs, Britain's Shame.
Welcome back, 11:37. Ben and Nana with you on Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Right, now, a big story because British farmers will be out in force across the nation, filling roads with tractors to protest against Labour's family farm inheritance tax. Now, this is the third and final day of consecutive protests across the UK, with yesterday coinciding with the Oxford Farming Conference, where Environment Secretary spoke. During the speech, Steve Reid apologised to the farmers over decisions the government took, but showed no sign of reversing the decisions.
It's a story that's almost been overshadowed slightly with all this rape gang scandal, but one that is still very much important. So let's cross live to our reporter, Will Hollis, who's out at one of the farmers' protests in Buxton. Good morning, Will. You've got some farmers with you as well.
Good morning. Yes, quite a few farmers here in Derbyshire.
We practiced that beforehand. It's not uncommon to see a fair few tractors on the rural roads of Derbyshire, Lincolnshire and other parts of the country as well. But you're probably going to see quite a few more of them today because Farmers to Action are continuing their protest against what some people are describing as the family farm tax, the introduction of inheritance tax on family farms. I'm joined by one family farmer, Les Bohm, here. Just describe for me a little bit about your farm here in Derbyshire.
We're dairy farmers. We've been farming all my life. My parents has as well. We're third generation. I've got a fourth generation at home doing the work, so I could be here. I feel very sorry for all these lads here who are a lot younger than me, because this inheritance tax is really going to give them a hard time if it was put into place.
There are a lot of young people here. What will the inheritance tax mean, particularly for people that one day plan or hope to inherit what is maybe always been intended to go for them, the family farm?
Yeah, the problem we've got, we've really dictated by supermarket prices. Not a lot of us are making much money. So if we have a 40% tax on my death, basically, me kids would have to come up with probably 400,000. Only way we could do that is sell off ground. And if you sell off your ground, you can't produce as much money off your farm to do that. So it's just a spiral going down and down.
There's about 50, maybe more farmers here. There's probably the same number of tractors. What will people see on rural roads like here in Buxton or across the country today?
Well, we're just showing that we're not going away. What the thing Keir Starmer has done is brought the farming community together. So we're all joining forces, showing that we're a community, and it's time the government looked after us.
What is the message to the Prime Minister or to Rachel Reeves, particularly in response to inheritance tax, which has been the headline element of the budget that farmers are really quite upset about?
Yeah, I think she's got to go and look at the figures. I think the NFU have said they're willing to get around the table to speak to them. So just look at your figures and basically stop it if you could.
Look at the figures. That's a message from Les. But there are lots of farmers here in Derbyshire. Let's hear from them one last time. The farmers here rolling into Buxton in Derbyshire. Yay! Much louder that time. The second one's always better, isn't it, Nana and Ben?
Very much, and yeah, great to hear from those farmers again. It's an issue that we're going to keep up to date with as it rolls on. Up on noon. Good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Emily. Good morning.
Oh, that was brilliant.
We
the participation there of all the farmers.
He's a good compere, isn't he, Will?
He is,
absolutely. I don't know if people at home could hear, but Emily and I were sort of cheering along as the farmers cheered. No, fantastic stuff.
What's on your show today?
Well, of course, we're going to be looking more at this grooming gang scandal. We're going to be with Charlie Peters, who has, of course, been on his tour of the country. We've found 50 towns and areas that we think this stuff is going on. But Charlie has another exclusive for us today.
Yeah, he does. He's found out that the leader of Oldham Council has written in an article for Labour List, that fantastic magazine online, suggesting that the town has now become a target for far-right abuse. Anyway, we're going to have a councillor on from Oldham who disagrees and thinks perhaps that shows a little brass neck.
Such a lazy response, isn't it? From Keir Starmer, from any of those Labour types, just say, oh, yeah, but it's the far right, you know. But do you know what? Even if it was the far right, the facts speak for themselves.
It's also a pernicious thing for the leader of a council to do, to complain about the spotlight that has been placed on the town, saying this is a bad thing because the far right might come here. No, it's a good thing that the spotlight has been placed to expose this scandal that was going on in the town that you supposedly run and weren't doing anything about. I mean, it's a pretty big scandal that the council leader would try and say that the attention brought to this issue is a bad thing.
It's about the victims, really, and that's what the attention should be on. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, anyway, this councillor that we're going to speak to has been scathing in the past about the leader of the council, so it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say. Also, we've got an exclusive to bring you relating to a school survey that's been flagged with me, sent to years 7 to 10, and it asks all sorts of questions, including whether you're the same gender that you were assigned at birth, asks you out of a long list which drugs you've tried, and also asks you some odd questions relating to self-harm. So we'll reveal all. We've got the parent who flagged this to me on a little bit later on.
That's 11-year-olds?
11-year-olds, yes.
11 to year 10, so 11 to 14,
school,
15. Yeah.
I don't trust anybody who wants to speak to young children about sex. I'm sorry. Straight relationships, gay relationships, their own...
Well, we've been to the council and we've been to the people who published this survey, and they've given their response, so we will put that across as well. But it does seem... well, crazy, actually.
And one other story that we'll be covering is this... I don't know how many people realised this week we came close to blackouts in the UK.
Yeah, I saw
we
that.
came one power station away from blackouts. Are we heading for an energy crisis over the next 12 months?
Well, it sounds like a fantastic show. That's up in about 15 minutes. Lots more still to come. But first, if you're in search of some winter sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European holiday destinations. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's not too hard to find something a little warmer than the UK. Around the Mediterranean, temperatures are generally in the low teens, but it's not completely dry. A few showers are possible across Cyprus this weekend. Certainly looking fairly wet across southern Italy and Croatia, although that rain will be scooting away by Sunday. Plenty of sunshine across the east and the south coast of Spain, and lots of sunshine for the Canaries. It will be quite breezy in Madeira. Quite a lot of cloud likely here over the next few days as well. Turning a little colder in Italy.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
With the dawn of the new year come new opportunities for the stage. Stefan Kyriazis joins us now to share how he started 2025.
We've got Sigourney Weaver, Hollywood star, coming in as Prospero in The Tempest. It's an experience. Sigourney Weaver has got this kind of patrician presence. She's always on stage, sat watching or stalking the area, but she doesn't quite get the Shakespearean rhythms for me. We've got more trauma for you, and we've got a little clip to run first. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. I don't know how people's Christmases were with their families, but this is a very unhappy family, so you can feel good about your family, whatever they're like. This is Tennessee Williams' deeply unhappy story of a family in sort of plantation south. The patriarch, Big Daddy, is dying, although he doesn't know it yet. Everyone is manoeuvring around him. Everyone is pretty unpleasant, pretty unhappy. It's all based on nobody really telling the truth. Everyone's suppressing things.
Got one more thing for us?
We do, and suddenly sunshine, life, joy. It's Nutcracker, but in Havana. Which is from Carlos Acosta. It's a very Cuban feel. And again, we've got a lovely little clip to cheer us all up.
Good.
That. There was no Christmas when he was growing up. Castro had banned it all. So we've got this setting in Cuba, and instead of magicians, you've got the uncle coming back from Miami, loads of presents. It's just full of joy. And you've got a reworked music. I love the Tchaikovsky score to death, but this one has been added, so you've got kind of Caribbean flutes and lutes and guitars. Huge exuberance, colourful, bright.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. British farmers are out in force across the nation, filling roads with tractors to protest against Labour's family farm inheritance tax.
We're now joined by farm machinery supplier Andrew Dutton, who's live down the line. Good morning, Andrew. Thank you for your company. What's your take on these continued protests? And you're also doing something to support your colleagues and your farmers, aren't you? There we go, out and about. Looks pretty chilly there, Andrew.
About -5.
Oh.
We've been stood here in the snow. But we've got really good support. We've got, we're expecting more support really soon because a lot of the farmers this morning have had to defrost all their pipes before they could milk the cows and feed the calves. We've had lots of messages saying, guys, I'm on the way, we're on the way. So there's lots of them coming on. But as you can see, we're on the dual carriageway here near a couple of regional distribution centres, and the lads are just not causing too many problems. We've got a lot of support from the general public, lots of people waving and putting the thumbs up. I was at one roundabout in a queue, and a lady actually wound a window down and said, I'm prepared to stay in the queue behind you all day. I love it.
Now, I want to ask you, so does your business supply farmers with machinery? And is that what it does? And if that's the case, well, how would this inheritance tax affect you? Presumably they won't want to buy as much equipment.
Well, as soon as the rumour was out that inheritance tax was coming in, our phones slowed down, and then as soon as the budget hit, our business, and there's lots of farm machinery dealers across the UK, we know lots and lots of them, but the phones just stopped. And cash flow's king in any business. And, well, I think last year, it was well in the 20s. I think about 26 farm machinery businesses just like ours disappeared. They've gone forever.
Wow.
So
yeah, it's
really difficult. Really, really difficult because farmers... they're all independent businesses. They don't think they've got a lot of power on their own, but unbeknown to them, when they got news about the inheritance tax, unbeknown to them, with them all being a little bit nervous, our business stopped.
Andrew, can I ask you, I don't think this policy, the inheritance tax, is about money. They're raising 500 million. So what do you think it's about? And who do you think is going to take over these farms and the land if and when some of your colleagues have to sell?
It's not about money. It can't be about money because people keep saying, oh, they're going to tax the wealthy landowners. Well, all the landowners that have got probably 2,000 acres plus who probably have got more money, they've got special terms anyway with heritage status, or they're very old estates that are in trust and they're untouchable. All the farms, especially in Cheshire, the ones that we look after, the size they're at, they've no protection at all. And they're just scared now that they're going to lose their land. And is this, well, an underhand land grab? But no one knows.
Just seems utter madness. I can't really work out what the reasoning is for this, apart from some sort of politics of envy. If they don't reverse it and this does go ahead, where do you see your business going?
Our business is already suffering because of this. There definitely will be more farm machinery businesses disappear this year. And also farm machinery manufacturers will disappear this year. I don't like to say that, but we've got to face the truth.
Yeah.
Farmers, there's going to be less farmers as well, because there's a lot now that are getting to a certain age where they've just had enough.
Yeah.
But the ones that want to carry on, how do they carry on if they've got to sell half the farm to pay inheritance tax?
Andrew, keep up the good work. Thank you for your company, and stay warm. Get yourself a nice hot chocolate or a coffee or something. Thanks, Andrew.
Well, listen, lots of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts. Gareth Morris, he says, we ran our own small business in a city centre 12 years ago. Council officers came in and said business rates were going up 30%. I said, we cannot afford it and we'll shut the shop. The councilman actually said, you're in business, you can afford it. And this is Rees' attitude to business, you can afford it.
30%. It's just unbelievable. Richard, you said you have to treat Labour like the police treat treat suspects, assume everything is BS and work from there.
That's hilarious. Now, this one for Deo Crazy, and it's about the story we were talking about with their parents being given and these weird forms in schools. And it says apparently parents that are concerned about the safety of their daughters are now far right. Does this mean that the far left are happy that their daughters could be in trouble? Right.
Interesting. Well, look, thank you for your company today. Very much appreciated. We have seen all your comments and your emails. It's hard to get through them all, but we've clocked them. Thank you. Up next is Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and
I'm
Emily.
back tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Be there or be square. See ya.
Well, debt is up, taxes are up, debt interest payments are up, the Chancellor's flying off to Beijing, and we came within a whisker of a blackout this week. Do you get the sense that the country is just falling apart?
And it's flipping freezing outside to add to all of that. We've also got an exclusive regarding Oldham Council, one of the areas where the grooming gang scandal was the worst. We'll be bringing that to you as well. And should children be being asked about what drugs they take and what gender they were assigned at birth? That next.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Time for another update from the Met Office here on GB News. It's going to be another cold one out there today. For many, fine blue sky, plenty of sunshine, but it is quite grey across southwest England, parts of South Wales.